and welcome to the April edition of the VolunteerMatch Best Practice Network webinar series. I'm Casey Brennan from VolunteerMatch and will be moderating our session today. We're really excited to be welcoming Britta from Net Impact today to discuss the concept of intrapreneurship. This is a signature kind of program of Net Impact, and it's really about empowering people internally to get involved in social and environmental change at their organization. So we're really pleased to have her on the call with us today. I know for myself and many of us, the concept of this word of intrapreneurship is new to us. So we definitely have a lot to learn about what it is and how we can put it into practice at our own organization. So before we get started, Britta, if you can go to the next slide. I just wanted to set up a couple of reminders for everyone about how you can ask questions. We'll be addressing all of your questions today at the end of the session, but you can submit them throughout the webinar today. So you can do it one of two ways. You can submit it on the right-hand side of your screen in the question box, or you can submit questions to us via Twitter by sending a tweet to @VM_solutions using the hashtag VMBPN, and that stands for Volunteer Match Best Practice Network. And then just as a reminder to everyone, we'll be circulating a copy of the slides and the recording at the end of the, later this week following up from the session. So without further delay, I'd like to welcome Britta to the call today, and I'll hand it over to her. Welcome, Britta.
Perfect. Thanks, Casey. And thanks so much for having me. I'm really excited to be on the line with all of you today and share a little bit about, first off, Net Impact just in general, and give you some background on this organization in case you aren't familiar with us, and then dive into one of our specific programs that we have here called Impact at Work. And so we'll get right to that. But I'm excited to be on the call, and thanks again for having me. So today, what are we going to talk about? As I just mentioned, I first want to make sure you're all aware of Net Impact and the program that we have here. We're a nonprofit in San Francisco, and so I'll describe that a little bit. And then we'll get into our specifics today around the Impact at Work program and talk about intrapreneurship, give you our definition of that, and give some examples and success stories that we've seen. And then what I really want the majority of this call to be centered around is this Impact at Work toolkit that we've developed here at Net Impact and really tried to get out to our masses to use to really get workplace change initiatives up and running. And so I'll be walking you through those main 3 steps and talk about some worksheets that we have to help support you through this, and really with the end goal that you've got something really tangible to walk away from the call today. So nothing too earth-shattering, not brain surgery. These are really just tangible tools and worksheets that are meant to help you not reinvent the wheel and make it really easy for you to get started at your workplace. And then, as Casey mentioned, I'm excited to hear any of the questions that you guys have along the way, so please feel free to use that chat function as Casey mentioned. I'm excited and eager to help you with any of your questions that you might have about whether it's Net Impact, the Impact at Work program, or the toolkit that we're going to talk about today. So first off, I'd like to introduce Net Impact in case you aren't familiar with us. We are a new generation of leaders who are using our careers to tackle the world's toughest problems. And Net Impact has over 20,000 members, close to 300 chapters, both student and professional, all over the world. So it's a pretty massive network when we look at those numbers. And with that, we see a big opportunity with this many people engaged, and we feel like we've got a really great opportunity when we think about how we can affect the working world, especially when you look at these kind of interesting and startling factors and metrics that you guys are likely already aware of. But when you think about the fact that we spend half of our waking hours at work, we've got a big opportunity to really try to ingrain making an impact into our day jobs, and to think of what kind of actions and impact could be made from that if we could just do a better job of ingraining that. And I think we sum it up with the question at the bottom of what if we could spend more of our working hours creating social and environmental change instead of squeezing all of our impact into nights and weekends.
All right, everyone, and welcome back to the April edition of our Best Practice Network webinar series. We just lost our internet connection briefly, so thanks to all of you for hanging in there and logging back in. Britta, we should be good to go. So if you want to keep going, we should be good.
All right. So I'm not quite sure where you all would have lost me here, but I will go right back to Jason, our first example of our social intrapreneur that we've seen here at NetImpact. And I'll give the brief summary since I'm not quite sure what you heard or where you got cut off. But essentially Jason created a whole campaign around eliminating plastic water bottles on their campus at Levi's. And the moral of the story is that in all of his efforts, they were able to recover $40,000 annually in savings and eliminated 6,000 water bottles per month. So it was a huge success and really was just started off of his own ambitions and aggravation around seeing all these plastic water bottles that seemed accepted. So he's our first example. Next, we've got Tamlin from Best Buy. And Tamlin is an awesome example of someone who is really passionate about environmental issues and didn't see a platform at Best Buy to really harness that. And so he started a grassroots group called Best Buy Social Responsibility and really just wanted to get people together who also shared those values and to work on some projects that might be ingrained into business units or might be sort of on top of it and just be looking at, for instance, waste on their corporate campus. But within a year, he was able to attract over 200 additional members to his group. And they now, through the few years of existence that they've been around, have done projects around waste reduction, implementing sustainable 401ks, environmental advocacy, etc. So, and he actually now holds a job running their corporate responsibility program. He started out in advertising, so it's just been a really fun story to watch with Tamlin really carving out his career in an area that he's passionate about, and then also enabling so many others along the way to roll up their sleeves and get involved with things that they're really passionate about. So even at a large company like Best Buy, it is definitely possible if people are enthusiastic enough and strategic in terms of how they bring together a group and take action. So those are our couple of examples that I just wanted to highlight to really bring some of these stories to life and show you kind of what they've been through and maybe give you a little motivation that it is possible at your workplace too. But now I'd like to also highlight just several benefits that we've seen throughout the years with our Impact at Work program, both on the company side and for the business side, and also for professional development personally for people to really engage in their workplaces. So starting at the top, obviously, I think this is one that comes to mind people a lot when they think of any sort of waste reduction project. But obviously, there's a lot of potential to really reduce costs and environmental impact in these projects. I mean, Betsy here saw 4.63 tons of paper reduced by her just removing one piece of a direct mailing that they would do at Sun Microsystems. We also have seen a lot of increased employee engagement and retention at Boston Consulting Group. This woman all she did was survey employees and to pull together some metrics and proof that people were passionate about this, and it helped so much for launching their green team that now has been in existence and pursued many projects. So that's a great piece we've seen. Also, professional development. I mean, these projects are a great opportunity for helping employees, especially junior employees, develop some really strong project management skills, teach teamwork, etc. We've also seen how, and actually this was really the case with Levi's as well, the furthering priorities of senior management and how if you can ingrain your values into the work that you're doing and showing that to senior management, it can really help sort of guide those overall future decisions of the organization. So that can be really beneficial to you. And lastly, and I think this one is pretty obvious to a lot of people, but by getting involved in whether it's volunteer projects or green teams, etc., it's really helping to enhance the corporate reputation of the organization you work for. So this is just another sort of fuel for the fire in terms of garnering support from whether it's management, HR, etc. But we have really seen where that has been the case for many of our members. So now, without further ado, I would like to share with you this Impact at Work toolkit that I've mentioned. We have built this toolkit over the few years that we've had with Intrapreneurs and offering the Impact at Work program, and we've put together, this package that from what we've learned of what would be helpful, what are things that people are looking for that they don't think that they should necessarily reinvent the wheel for, what can we make as a sort of standardized, easy process so these projects are that much more feasible to approach. And we've really broken it down into these 3 steps, which is defining your project, engaging stakeholders, and finally, of course, delivering results if all of that goes well. The toolkit location I have noted down here at the bottom, and I'm actually going to turn to the toolkit right now and show you where it is on our website, just because, again, I really want this to be a tangible learning experience for you all to be able to leave the call today and go find this super easily yourself. So bear with me as I go on to our website, and actually we had clicked in, but here is our Impact at Work page on our Net Impact website. And you'll see at the top here, right here, is our Impact at Work toolkit, and this is where you can go to simply download it now. I'm gonna actually go over to a full screen mode just so you can have it more easily and just a better visual for it, but that's where you would go to download it. We've also highlighted the Impact at Workshop, which I mentioned briefly earlier, and then we've also got these webinars that are upcoming that I mentioned, also the calls that we offer, so you can go here to check this out. But just wanted to point out quickly where this is located and show you how easy it is to download. And now I'm going to go to the specific toolkit. So we're going to start. Some of the beginning elements are very easy for you to read through later. So I am going to just give you a high-level overview on some of these pages, and I want to get to the worksheets and spend a little bit more time there, because I really think that's where you guys will all find the most value from it. But inside this toolkit, as you can see, we go through how to define a project, how to engage your stakeholders, and finally deliver results. And those appendix worksheets are really where I think you guys will find some benefit in making this really easy for you to take those worksheets and run with them. So, start at the very beginning. And as I mentioned, I'm not going to read through all of this. Obviously, this is a text-heavy slide, but I just wanted to show it to you and, like I said, give you kind of a high-level overview. But on this first part of the process is all about defining the project that you want to approach. So the 3 kind of steps that go around that is, first off, just brainstorming, getting a lot of ideas down to identify those potential projects. And to do that, we've actually got 2 worksheets that will help you with this. And in just a minute, I will be showing you those, so we'll get to that. Next part of this process is really evaluating the benefits of the project and also the challenges, so that you can really, decide what would be the most feasible project, where you have most bang for your buck. And we've also got a worksheet to help you with that element. And then lastly, of course, there's the actual selection part of the process where you decide which project it's going to be, and really get into defining what that is and giving that project a little more direction. And that is what the final worksheet 4 will help you do. So next big piece of this process, and a really critical one that you guys are probably already aware of, but is really engaging stakeholders. So whoever is involved in this project, maybe it's people who will either help with the project, maybe it's people who need to approve the project, maybe it's just people who will be, surrounding the project and sort of affected by what the project decision is. But it's really, thinking through that and where you need to get buy-in and support. So first off, it's all about building a team, and maybe some of you on the line already have green teams in place, in which case, great, because you've got probably a team to start from. For any of you who don't, I think this is a great opportunity to start it. You can remember Hamlin's story and maybe get something going on your own in your workplace, regardless of how big or small your company is. But that's really the first step, is thinking about who might be interested in working with you on these initiatives. And then next is mapping these stakeholders, and there's a worksheet that will help you to do this. And again, we'll be going through those in just a minute. But it's really thinking through who all is involved and touched by this project. And then last, it's communicating that message to the stakeholders. So once you've got the project really fleshed out and you can put together a communication plan, making sure that your project is communicated throughout is critical to success. And finally, obviously with all of this effort, you want to make sure that you are able to deliver results, because that is obviously the point of all of this. So after you know what your project is, which stakeholders are involved, it's critical that you then have put up a sort of structure that will really help you to deliver these results. And so that, a big part of that is determining how you'll measure that and thinking through what metrics that you'll use and how you'll be able to, report out and validate your efforts. Also charting the progress that your project makes, and that way helping to identify the areas that, you're really succeeding, and maybe also showing you opportunities where there are weaknesses and things that need to be addressed in order for your project to be successful. And then finally, making sure that as these projects end, that there's some sort of maintenance in the momentum and engagement that your project and that your team has. I mean, again, I'll refer to green teams, but making sure that you're celebrating your successes and continuing to go back to that brainstorm mode to kind of keep the cycle rolling, and hopefully that'll allow for your team and your organization to see a lot of different successes through your efforts. So now we're going to get into what I think will be, as I mentioned earlier, what might be most helpful for all of you, and again, hopefully a really tangible thing for you to take away from this call. But these are the worksheets that, again, this is all what you can download right from the website, and as much as we don't like to see paper to use, you could print out a couple of these or put it up on a projector if you wanted in a meeting. But this first worksheet is meant to really help guide your initial brainstorm. So how which projects that you might look at, there's a bunch of different themes that you can obviously see on the left side, and by no means is this an exhaustive list, but just really meant to show you some ideas to think about what might be applicable to your workplace. We do think that this top row of the themes, the project ideas, what benefits, challenges, difficulty level, and where to start are important things to think through, regardless of whether your idea is listed on this worksheet or not. So that can be just sort of a helpful framework to evaluate the project. But this, I think, is a great way. Some people, I think, feel overwhelmed by not having anywhere to start. And so if you feel like a starting point would be beneficial, then this is for you. So go for volume. Add your own, get creative, but this can be a starting point. So next part of this brainstorm process, this is the second worksheet that we have, also aimed at this brainstorm stage. And we highlight two different questions at the top that are really meant to get people's minds, thinking about what might be possible in your organization. And the first one is more of an emotional approach. So what unsustainable activities bother you in the workplace? What annoys you? Is it the plastic water bottles that are in the garbage right next to the recycling bin? Is it that people need education around it? Is it better signage? Who knows? But what really annoys you? Maybe it's disposable forks at the cafeteria. Maybe it's people bringing in their paper coffee cups versus a reusable one. Just use this question to kind of I think that makes it easier when people frame it around that, unfortunately. But we all know it's true. So then there's the rational approach, second, of really what are the activities that might benefit your organization. So we've already talked about cost savings, and that's a big one with any sort of waste reduction. But maybe there's ways that your community could be served by volunteer efforts. Who knows? So think through that element, and this is also an arena that you are likely to get better, senior management support and whatnot if you can really think through what things might really benefit your organization. So then at the bottom of this worksheet, this is simply just an area to write down those ideas, and it's taking a little bit of the elements of the worksheet that you just saw prior to this one, but again, giving you some themes, giving you some examples to start from in case people in the room need somewhere to start. So hopefully this is a helpful worksheet. Maybe bring this to your lunch table today. Who knows? But a great place to start. So then we get into, after you finish those, these 2 worksheets that helped you with the brainstorm phase of project identification, you've hopefully got tons of ideas down, you've got plenty to choose from, and at that point, you really do need to think through more of the details on what might be the potential benefit or impact, where are you going to see your biggest challenges, and how difficult is it, and really, is this going to make a difference at the end of the day? So this framework is really just to help you go through, flush out these ideas, and at the end of this process, come to, at the bottom here, your most attractive project idea. And I think this is helpful too in terms of sometimes I think green teams can have, or maybe it doesn't even have to. I'm using the term green team, but please convert that to whatever sort of employee initiatives that you guys get involved with. But I think it can be overwhelming when you can go from that brainstorm session and have a ton of ideas, but unless you can really hone in and focus on one, it can be hard to really set the wheels in motion. So the whole goal of this 3rd worksheet is really to use the top part to, again, flush out details, but at the end of the day, come out with one project idea to really focus on initially. And I think that's something that we've learned and that we've seen over time here is that it's critical to sort of take the baby steps, start with small wins, get some credibility under your belt before you, try to take on too much. And you don't want to wear people out. You don't want to start a bunch of projects that can't be completed. So keep it simple and come up with one idea at the end of this process. So then that idea is that you've got that most attractive project idea, and now you want to, hone in on that and really figure out the details of this project. So that's what this 4th worksheet is all about, project definition. So what are we going to name the project? As simple as that, putting that down at the top here. And then this piece, which many of you on the line probably are well aware, but we've seen how absolutely critical flushing out business objectives are. So, unless you can really make a business case for this at the end of the day, your project is likely not to succeed. So thinking about what are the metrics that you can track with this, or what are the specific benefits of the organization, and really making that pretty clear in this section, which will really help in terms of communicating it later on in the process. So then lastly, what's a description that you can use that really will pull it all together and describe this project to potential participants of your team, to stakeholders, et cetera. And that should really encompass both of these elements from the top of the project name and really what the objectives are. So that'll help you define your project a little more thoroughly. Next, we'll move on to stakeholder mapping, which, as I mentioned earlier, is a really, really critical part of project planning with these workplace change projects. And that, through this process, you're really going to think about, again, anyone who is likely to be impacted by your project and may or may not have interest in it, but might be involved in some way, shape, or form. So think through that. Just simply list them out to begin with and get them all out on the table. Another important thing to think about, and could be potentially really valuable for your project, is thinking about who might be a potential sponsor of your project. And, who might, from a senior leadership perspective, might be able to really push your project through in a way that maybe you won't be able to on your own. So perhaps it's a team in HR. Perhaps it's a senior manager who's really passionate about volunteering or environmental issues, and think about how you can potentially engage them. And then really we just get to this bottom part where it is thinking through this map of, where are these key stakeholders going to sit? Are they going to be strongly against your project? Are they probably supportive? And in that sense, you can really think about, who on this side of strongly against, or even neutral, but what are ways that you can move them towards this more strongly supportive side? And that'll just help guide that discussion and think through ways that you can try to gain as much support as possible. So last worksheet that we've got here is this action plan, and this kind of sums up a lot of elements in the toolkit. But as I mentioned before, metrics is a critical piece. So how are you going to measure the success of the project? Thinking through next steps always to keep the project moving is also very important. And then thinking through those long-term milestones that are going to help you complete the project and have a success at the end of the day that you can report on. So that is that's our toolkit. It's a 10-page wealth of information, I hope, for you. As I mentioned and showed you earlier, you've got a lot of content earlier on in the toolkit that you can read through for just some helpful background information. But these worksheets that are in the appendix, I think, are really where you're going to get a lot of helpful information around this. So now let me go back to our PowerPoint to kind of finish this up. But that is the toolkit. Again, I really hope that you guys take advantage of it. It's publicly available and there for you to use. So now I'm just going to talk us through some next steps and then want to address any of the questions that you guys might have on anything that you've heard or seen. So potential next steps, and this is obviously up to you, and everyone's sitting in a different place right now, so you maybe already have projects in motion. Maybe this will be helpful for a future project, but maybe you're ready to take something on and, like I said, bring the brainstorm worksheet to your lunch table today. But potentially, you could form a team. As I mentioned earlier, there's a really funny, quirky video that's super short, and you could potentially send that around to your coworkers to say, hey, what do you think about thinking through some projects that we could do here at our organization and really make a positive difference. So form a team. Second one, get it on the calendar. Obviously, it's easy enough to just sit through a webinar like this today and think this sounds like such a great idea, and I've heard about all the benefits, but unless you get it down on paper or mark your calendar, it's easy for these things to get pushed aside. So set a date, get together with a group of your coworkers to use the toolkit, and continue to move forward on some of your project ideas. Third, learn more. We've got all kinds of information to share with you at our website, netimpact.org, and we've got, as I showed you even firsthand, the Impact at Work area of that. You can check that out for more information, maybe attend one of our calls coming up. We've also got calls that are recorded and available to you after the fact, so there's a great archive that you could check out. So that's another option. And last but not least, I mentioned this earlier in the call, but we've got this great resource called the Impact at Work Shop, which is, like I said, a little more hefty than the toolkit. So if you try out the toolkit and you like it, maybe you should consider going through this workshop that you can engage your organization on. So just please reach out to impact@netimpact.org to receive those workshop materials. We don't have that one posted just online. We like to keep that a little closer to us in terms of just sort of tracking the usage and the success, and also to offer support along the way. So if you're debating on how to use the workshop, we're also happy to assist you on that. So that's that, and I hope you have questions that I can help with. Here's my contact info. I'd be very happy to connect with any of you who might want to talk more about our Impact at Work program or the toolkit, etc. And then also here's another reminder of where our Impact at Work area on our website is, and also our join link for NetImpact. Maybe you're now intrigued to get more involved with this network that we have here, and if that is the case, then we have options of both even free membership, or some paid membership that come with additional benefits. So you can definitely check that out at netimpact.org/join. And there, I hope people have questions. I hope you found this valuable. Again, it's nothing too super crazy earth-shattering, just a very tangible toolkit that will hopefully be really helpful in the efforts that you guys might either be thinking about doing or already engaged in. So with that, Casey, I don't know if you've got any questions in your box, or if anyone has any comments or whatnot. I would be very happy to take those right now.
Yes, we do have a few questions, Britta, and thank you so much for that overview. This is really helpful. I know that there's a full toolkit online, and even the workshop materials that people can go to the NetImpact website and download. But I think getting walked through this process a little bit gets all of us thinking a little bit more about, even if we have a really well-established program already, what are the pieces that it's missing, and how can we play a part in getting those started? So, this is a lot. This even gives me a lot to think about. So thank you so much, Britta, for walking us through.
Absolutely.
We do have a few questions, and I encourage everyone to continue to send them. We do have a good amount of time for Q&A today, so we're very fortunate to have some time. So please send your questions, and we'll get to as many as we can. One of the first questions, Britta, one of the steps in the process is mapping the stakeholders and kind of determining what your roadblocks are going to be, how they're going to be engaged, what information you need to give them. We got a question about when you're involving external parties and external stakeholders in the process. For instance, specifically if you're kind of running a community or employee giving program, that often includes partnership with possibly a nonprofit partner. Do you offer any advice or have any tips when thinking about how to map those types of relationships when you're kind of setting yourself up?
Yeah, honestly, I don't think, and maybe others on the call, and if you've got other opinions about it, feel free to share that via chat too, and maybe Casey can offer other suggestions. But honestly, from the work that I've done with the toolkit, I haven't really seen a huge difference in external versus internal stakeholders, because really, if you think through and are able to list out anyone who's involved with the project, even if it's a community partner, they're also going to need a level of engagement and thinking through whether or not they're going to be supportive or not in your project will help you then hopefully formulate your own plan to gain that support. But honestly, I don't really think that there necessarily needs to be a different approach in terms of just the stakeholder mapping. Of course, how you approach them or what support they need might be different than what protocol is, for instance, inside an organization. But in terms of just the general exercise of mapping and thinking through, where they lie in terms of support, I think should be pretty consistent. Yeah.
Okay.
So, from what I've seen, yeah.
Yeah, so the advice there for everyone on the line is to follow the same process, basically, whether it's an internal or an external stakeholder, use the same framework to walk yourself through some of the benefits, roadblocks, and thinking through that process a little bit. We definitely, to your point, Britta, VolunteerMatch does offer, through our blog, Volunteering is CSR, which is volunteeringiscsr.org, we have posted about how to create strong and effective partnerships between companies and nonprofits. So I can definitely send that out to everyone with just some tips of things to think about. When you're getting started with somebody, I think this is a point you made, Britta, about thinking through, is this idea going to benefit this stakeholder, or is it going to be another thing on their plate? Similarly, when you're working with external people, you need to think through, what are the challenges going to be? What's the mutual benefit going to be, so that when you're talking to this person, you can talk about the benefits for them and their organization or their role at the organization, if it's an internal program. So thinking through all that, and I can definitely send a link out to that. So that's a great question. So thanks for submitting that.
Yeah, and I'm glad that you've got those additional resources. That's perfect, actually, because again, the approaches could vary a lot, and it might, it needs to be a thoughtful way of engagement. So that's actually a perfect step two to just the initial mapping of it.
Yeah, definitely. We did get a question via Twitter about accounting for employee time. And within the process, when you're building in sort of what this program is going to look like and how it's going to be implemented, I mean, one of the main challenges when you're starting a program is often, getting buy-in from senior management to allow for people to take work time to implement these programs. And or, sometimes it's getting started on those nights and weekends, as you mentioned at the beginning.
Yeah.
Do you have any sort of advice or tips about how to gain that buy-in to make sure that this can be put on the calendar during the day rather than after hours?
Yeah, that's a great question, and definitely one that I hear of a lot, because it's very legitimate when we've all got our set in stone responsibilities of our actual role, and then thinking about layering on these things on top of it can be challenging. I would honestly refer to the slide that I went through several minutes back around the benefits that we've seen, and I really think it takes a serious conversation to sit down with your manager, whoever that you're reporting in, and again, this goes back to the importance of stakeholder engagement. But if you can get the support from your boss and your direct manager, that's obviously critical. And in terms of how to do that, I think it's it's really highlighting the potential benefits that you'll get out of this sort of work. You know, the project management, for example, is a great one, where maybe in your current, your current role, you're not getting full ownership of projects, and here's an opportunity for you to, have some professional development in this area. And this is, I think being able to show that as an opportunity is really great. Then I think even just thinking really carefully through the approach and the conversation and being really organized in your thoughts early on, and like I said, really thinking through it. So instead of just sitting down with your manager and you happen to think of it in your next one-on-one of, hey, I want to spend all this time on this green team, they might, that might not come off as well as a sort of laid out plan of, this is the project that I want to pursue. This is about how much time I think it's going to take. Here are the benefits, though, that are going to come out of the project. That's where, thinking through the business objectives, like how it could actually bring benefit to the overall organization might be really helpful. So just really thinking through the delivery and preparing for that, so that your thoughts are organized and you've got all of the benefits sort of outlined and highlighted. But yeah, again, everyone on the call, I think referring back to that slide of the benefits that we've seen, whether it's the corporate reputation or all of these cost savings, et cetera, might be helpful in triggering things that your boss might care about. And that's an interesting point to be made too, is everyone's different. So trying to think through what matters to that manager, whether it's heartstrings or business objectives, connecting it to those things, I think are really critical in getting support. And again, it's kind of baby steps in some elements too. Of you might have to start really small to kind of build credentials to gain sort of more trust and go from there. But start small and see where you can get some progress.
Okay, and Britta,
I hope that's helpful.
Yeah, do you mind flipping back to that slide again, just so we can all be reminded about, those are some great proof points.
Yep.
And there's a lot of, I would say that there's a lot of crossover between these benefits that you guys help map out and some of the benefits that we try to encourage when we're building, specifically a volunteer engagement program. What is the benefit to employee morale? What is this going to do for your skill development? And thinking through all those pieces is really a great way to kind of get people started. And if you're willing to kind of put in that time and, into your own professional development, whether you're a project manager or that the program elements will help you develop new skills, once, as Britta mentioned, you get that tiny win, you can gain additional buy-in to kind of blow the program out more, maybe build a full team of people to kind of help drive it forward and show the business benefits to those people. And I'd also add to this, Britta, for those people who are managers on the call, thinking through some of these organizational benefits and professional development benefits, this is really important. And I encourage those people who are managers on the call to take this to heart and think about, we don't always have to wait for people to step up and ask for it. Think through maybe what you can do for your team or your department and getting something started. And maybe you even want to call somebody out as, an advocate for this, saying, hey, I think this is a great idea. Would you be willing to try this? Thinking through how it can get started is a great way. And, top down is definitely just as effective as from the bottom up.
Yeah, that's a great point. And actually that triggered another thing that I'll mention that I've actually heard from when I've connected with more senior management level. That's something that they have taken advantage of is in the case where sometimes if you're in a small organization, it's not always easy to, say, promote people who, are sort of ready for that. You get people who you don't want to get bored necessarily in roles. And so these projects are also another way to, maybe your employees or your team need, a new challenge on their plate, and they're ready for a next step in their development. And these opportunities around workplace change can actually be a perfect thing to sort of spice up their routine. So look for those opportunities as well.
Awesome. Well, Britta, a couple other questions that we got. We seem to have struck a chord when you showed the example of Levi's initiative and eliminating bottled water in the workplace. So I'm going to jump into this just because it came up a couple of times about really, what maybe you have some additional information or some tangible advice for those on the line who are actually trying to implement this exact same problem. I don't know if you've talked to the Levi's team or gotten more details about what are some specific steps or roadblocks that came up that were important that maybe you could share with them about how to get started in eliminating bottled water at events or within the office. Is it something where you're encouraging the employees to bring their own water bottles? Did you buy everybody a water bottle? Do you have any information about that case study specifically?
Yeah, I do. So I'll try to remember as many details as I can from it, because there were a few different elements of this project that, were challenging and that Jason really had to, overcome to reach the success that he did in the end. So a big thing that he dealt with in this particular situation was changing behavior, which, as we all know, can be really challenging at times. And so one of the things that he knew, as I mentioned just briefly, so apparently at Levi's it was very protocol that when you went to meetings there literally were bottles of water in the room. So people were used to that luxury and convenience of just having it there. So instead he put together a proposal that really helped shift the behavior piece and make it easier for people to accept the fact that they weren't going to have those bottles of water. So for example, he put together a plan of purchasing pitchers, literally pitchers for meeting rooms where people could fill up pitchers of water from the potable taps that they would have on each floor, and would bring that in with cups, reusable cups that people could use. So that was one element of sort of easing the pain of eliminating these water bottles. He also did, he was able to secure funding basically based on the cost-benefit analysis of we're going to remove this many water bottles, so we'll have X amount in savings. Let's take a portion of that savings and actually buy reusable water bottles. And so they did give out reusable water bottles to all of staff at one point, and I think they made kind of a fun event out of it actually. And so I think which brings me to another point of this whole advocacy element of it. And so I think it was a morning event where they were at several different doors and they had the water bottles to hand out to people as they're coming into the office, but they also had signage up that gave some statistics on bottled water and the waste that it produces and the fuel necessary and that really helps people sort of to understand why the change was taking place, because I think that's a big part of it, right? If you're you're changing something that's obvious in people's routine, you need to help them understand why, and if they have that clarity, then it's that much easier for them to accept the change and adapt to it. So that was another element of it. I'm trying to think of the details around the hurdle he faced with the actual catering company, because I know that bringing that news to another business is not going to be super well received if you're going to say, hey, we're cutting out a large portion of your business. And so I think it was having a very careful conversation with that catering company around potentially thinking through other options of other high-margin products that they could promote, but it was really having to take a serious conversation and understanding that business to make that shift. And those are details that I don't know quite as many, but I know that was one challenge that he was essentially able to overcome, but had to be pretty thoughtful about it.
Awesome.
Those are a few of the elements that I can recall on it. I hope some of those are helpful.
Yeah, definitely. And I just want to kind of highlight a couple of the points from that case study is, a big piece of that you mentioned with education. When you're trying to change behaviors, you need to explain why. Why are there no more water bottles in the room? Why is it being replaced with these pitchers? How is this going to help the organization? How is this going to help me as an individual, serve better? I think education is a great kind of catalyst for that change and making sure that people are empowered. And then another point you made is that they kind of made a game out of it. So you gave them the information, you maybe create a little competition internally. It's something that, we offer advice about, in employee engagement in volunteer programs. It's a similar thing. So no matter what the program element is, whether it's reducing the amount of water bottles, reducing the amount of printing in your office, or trying to get people more engaged in whatever programs there are, that gamification piece can be a huge help in getting people involved and getting them excited and getting them engaged. So that's just kind of sum that up.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Okay, so we just have a few more minutes left, but I just wanted to maybe talk about one more point, and something that you highlighted, Britta, and that with a lot of the questions coming in that are really asking specifics about other people's campaigns, I think something that's really important with using a toolkit like this is also remembering that there's people at other organizations that are trying the same type of programs that you are. And so I was just thinking about the importance of learning from others and learning from their experience. And even on the slide that we're on right now where it's talking about project benefits and where you are calling out specific examples of what others were able to do, I think sometimes an untapped resource is our peers in our own industry or in our own community, or people who are starting similar programs. So I wanted to encourage everyone on the call to, if we flip back to that last slide where you were showing all of Net Impact's resources, they have a ton of ways to learn from others. All the webinars that Net Impact hosts actually feature, I believe, Britta, and correct me if I'm wrong, they actually feature a practitioner of these programs and kind of telling their story and showing a case study of what they went through to kind of implement their program. Is that right?
Yeah, most of the time. We sometimes shake it up with like an industry expert who talks about change makers, for example, or something. But no, that is absolutely what a big goal of our calls is to do. Is because yes, we know that seeing examples and having the opportunity to ask questions in a similar format to actually the exact same platform we use here at Net Impact. So you definitely you can use the question and chat feature and really have an opportunity to pick the brain of somebody who's done a project like this. So yeah,
absolutely. So we'll send out these links as well with the follow-up materials later this week. But I encourage everyone to check out, again, those calls are recorded so that everyone can access them after the fact. So if you want to kind of skim through some of the recordings or sign up for one that's upcoming, that might be a great way to kind of get you started. Once you have the toolkit in hand, you can start thinking through how you're going to apply this to your company and what you can learn from people who have already done it. So Britta, we're about out of time, so I'm just going to flip to the last couple of slides. Thanks to everyone for joining today and for sticking with us after our technology hiccup. I definitely want to encourage you all to kind of stay engaged with these sessions. This is a great way, again, as we were mentioning, to learn from our peers, to learn from organizations like Net Impact and others in the field who are creating initiatives that can really help bring us all together and get us all on point and really up to par with what's happening in the world of corporate social responsibility. So to stay up to date about upcoming webinars, definitely follow and check out our blog, volunteeringiscsr.org. And follow us on Twitter, VM_solutions. We will always let you know what's coming up next and how to get engaged in these sessions. And we hope you'll continue to join us on these calls. You can also find an archive of all of our Best Practice Network webinars on our YouTube page. So if you search VolunteerMatch on our YouTube, you can find our channel and find a series that's called Best Practice Network. So Britta, thank you again for coming and sharing with us today and getting us sort of on the first step to creating change within our organization. So thank you so much for joining us. Thank you to everyone for listening in, and we'll hope to see you next time.
Yeah, my pleasure. Thanks for having me. Thanks, everyone.
Have a great day.